I've seen my fair share of gangsters, but the story of Thaddeus Storm Shadow is something else. This guy, he was no joke. Leader of the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods, one of the most notorious gangs out there. You know, when I heard about his 40-year sentence, I knew this was a story that needed to be told. It's not just about one man, it's about an entire criminal empire crumbling. Let me tell you something, these 9 Trey guys, they weren't playing around. They were a subset of the Bloods, one of the most feared gangs in the country. You see, they started in the 90s at Rikers Island, and from there, they spread like wildfire. These guys, they had their fingers in everything, drugs, guns, you name it. Now, I've been around organized crime, and I can tell you, these guys were organized. They had a structure, a hierarchy. It wasn't just some street gang, it was a full-blown criminal enterprise. And at the top of this pyramid, that's where you'd find Thaddeus Storm Shadow. Shadow, man, this guy was something else. He didn't just join the gang, he climbed to the top. And let me tell you, in that world, you don't get to the top by being nice. This guy, he had a reputation for being ruthless, cunning. He knew how to play the game, and he played it well. You know, back in my day, we had guys like this. They'd come up through the ranks, making moves, building alliances. Shadow did all that and more. He turned the 9 Trey into a well-oiled machine. Under his leadership, they became one of the most feared gangs in New York. And fear in that world, that's currency. Now, let's talk about how this operation worked. You see, Shadow didn't run this thing alone. He had a whole structure underneath him. There were the shot callers, the guys who made decisions on the street. Then you had the enforcers, the muscle. These were the guys you didn't want to mess with. And at the bottom, you had the soldiers, the guys doing the day-to-day dirty work. But here's the thing, this wasn't just some loose group of thugs. No, Shadow ran this like a business. They had territory, they had rules, they had a chain of command. It was organized crime in its purest form. And believe me, I know a thing or two about organized crime. Listen. When it came to making money, these guys didn't discriminate. Their main game was drugs. Heroin, fentanyl, you name it. They flooded the streets with this stuff. And let me tell you, the amount of money they were making, it was insane. But with drugs come turf wars. And that's where the guns came in. These guys, they were armed to the teeth. We're talking handguns, automatics, the works. And they weren't afraid to use them. Violence was their language. Now you might think that in a gang like this, it's all chaos. But let me tell you, there were rules. And if you broke those rules, man, you were in for a world of hurt. Shadow, he didn't tolerate disloyalty. If he even suspected someone was thinking about ratting or not pulling their weight, that person would disappear. They had a whole system for this. There were beatings, there were violations. That's gang talk for punishments. And in the worst cases, well, let's just say some people ended up in the East River. Now, let's talk about how they brought this whole operation down. The feds, they weren't playing around. They put together a task force, FBI, DEA, NYPD, the works. These guys, they were relentless. They used every trick in the book. Surveillance, wiretaps, undercover ops. They were building this case brick by brick. But here's the thing, and I know this from experience. To really bring down an organization like this, you need insiders. You need people on the inside willing to talk. One of the key players in bringing down Shadow was a guy named Curtis Red Rum Martino. Now, this guy, he was deep in the 9 Trey. He knew things, saw things, and when the feds got to him, he started singing like a canary. In the courtroom, Martino laid it all out, the structure, the crimes, the violence. But Martino wasn't alone. There were others who flipped, other insiders who decided to save their own skin. And let me tell you, I've been on both sides of this. I know how it works. These guys, they're facing life in prison and suddenly, cooperating doesn't seem so bad. When it came time for the trial, man, it was something else. The prosecution, they had a mountain of evidence. They had the testimony from the informants, they had surveillance, they had wiretaps. The defense, they tried their best. They attacked the credibility of the informants, tried to poke holes in the prosecution's case. But let me tell you, when the feds build a case like this, it's tough to beat. It was like watching a heavyweight fight where one guy's got both hands tied behind his back. In the end, the verdict came down like a hammer. Shadow, 40 years. His enforcer, 30 years. It was a knockout blow to the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods. But here's the thing, and I've seen this before. When you cut off the head, the body doesn't always die. These organizations, they have a way of adapting, of finding new leadership. The streets, they're still there. You know, stories like Shadow's, they're not new. I've seen them play out time and time again. But each time, it serves as a reminder of the ongoing battle between law enforcement and organized crime. It's a cycle, a never-ending game of cat and mouse. And while the players might change, the game remains the same. Stay safe out there, and remember, crime might seem glamorous, but in the end, it only leads to one place, and that's behind bars.